Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that warm, heartfelt welcome. Much of it carries the vibration, which is mutual, which I send back to you. That's the vibration of love. For this is the reason, the sole reason for my work, for my race. It was love, transcending, even being fully aware of all of our faults and shortcomings. It remains a burning desire to serve. I should try not to give a very long speech. In fact, it shouldn't be very long, because Queen Mother Moore and Ambassador Romani, well, I wouldn't say they shot what I had to say to pieces, but they actually covered so much of it. So what I shall say will be primarily the highlight. For both of these addresses to you by Mother Moore and our good friend the Ambassador were masterpieces. And as I listened to them, I wondered, as I've always wondered, how much of the key things said, how many of the very important, never to be forgotten parts of their messages will not only be remembered, but will be acted upon. I wonder. Fact is, I was applauding Mother Moore so often, I found myself applauding, just clapping my hands, even when she attacked people with string of degrees. I said, uh-oh. But I was applauding away just as though she was praising people. I said, now I do have a string of degrees. And after I thought a moment, I said, now what was I applauding about? Mother Moore just must be magic, having me applauding an attack on myself. Because I'm certainly one of those guilty of having what you call a string of degrees. Incidentally, the degrees were not the things that I was seeking. I was seeking knowledge. I was seeking education. And actually the degrees happened to come in sort of recognition of stages of achievement in that pursuit, I suppose, but certainly I've never been degree conscious. So I've never uh, thought whether a moment about whether anyone called me Dr. Williams or Mr. Williams or just Williams. All the same to me. So I'm not degree conscious. A few things they did lead me to say or to reemphasize. And what I shall say will have to do with what I will be saying, the only thing that I will be talking about for the rest of my life. I'll have one theme, so that if you heard me once, you can skip the next talk because I'm going to be talking about the same thing until it's driven home to the point that throughout this land of ours and other parts of the black world, action will begin. So I would say at the outset that theme is the one which I stress in the second half of the Destruction of Black Civilization, The View from the Bridge. Which has to do with the question of what we should be doing now for our own salvation, what we should actually be doing. And one of the reasons someone asked since I arrived here, more than one person asked, a question that I'm constantly asked, why it is so difficult to get me to speak. You know, I don't, not one of these persons who just cover the circuit, you know, just speaking all the time. I can't escape answering some invitations, but to make a profession of speaking, I discovered some years ago that if I accepted all the invitations that I received, I'd be on the road practically all the time. But that isn't the reason. The reason, very simply, is something that I observed as a boy. And that is how much we of the black race, we of Africa, have got into a habit that is almost traditional, which is a love for meetings, and a love for speaking, and which, by the way, are the necessary first two steps for action, but we generally stop there. And I said that I'm not going to wear myself out to the end by just going around speaking the same thing over and over again that you know only too well. Largely, we don't want to hear the kind of message I have to give, because my message generally does not leave one feeling so good. You know, we want to feel good, you know, we want someone, and we live in such a troublesome world, and it's getting worse. So many pressures. Civilization itself is in decline. Society is disintegrating. Standards, what are they? Standards? Every man for himself, the devil take the hind. The age of the rip-off, where very little in the main. This kid about the other person. The age of stealing was thought to be something that could be relegated to the poor. Now, predominant in the highest places of government, legislatures, you name it. The rip-off of the public money. So, to discuss what we should be doing, it's necessary to point out, perhaps again, why, again and again and again, why. And number one reason, of course, is that what is happening to us, and this is most disturbing, the race as a whole seem not to be aware of both a silent war that is being persistently, systematically waged against the black world, not just us here in America, but much of it is more concentrated here in America. Silent, and then it's not so silent. And because it's more and more open, you know, if you listen to the media, either radio or TV, or if you read the newspapers as members of the African race. Of course, if you read it as full-fledged Americans, you won't see it either. You see it, but you say, you know, not talking about me, they're talking about us. And it's organized. So the overall theme of what I shall be saying, and which would be, in effect, my last message to the race, could be called, or could be presented under the title of While the Black World Sleeps. While the Black World Sleeps. Let us begin, for example, just naming a few things, but as I said, much of it has been covered in the two previous addresses, which most of you heard. Let us begin with a few things that we should be fully aware of. Let us take our economic situation in the United States with respect to employment and with respect to our whole job outlook, which has everything to do with our entire outlook. For one thing we haven't yet learned is that our economic status in the world will determine all the rest. Will determine to what extent we are educated, will determine to what extent we're in a position to war on disease, or, to state it another way around, to check the present systems of life and death in which we of the black world always diverge. To know that our politics mean nothing unless it is supported by something, based upon something, that gives not just those who happen to be elected to office a better status in life, a good position, a good job, more influence, more respectability. But until politics means something for the masses of the people who vote for these politicians, politics will mean very little in advancing the race, except to the ballot box and back home. And they'll be thereafter deceived. So we should be very much concerned about 3 or 4 developments which I will mention. The first began in the 1960s. The most significant one began after the outbreak of rioting following the assassination of Dr. King, when the government set up a $3 billion anti-black law enforcement agency, set up expressly to deal with any possible future outbreaks among blacks. And it was one of the most thoroughly organized systems. We hear about it as LEA, Law Enforcement Agency, but we don't think it means very much for us. It's entirely made up for us. Since it was set up, billions of dollars have been expended. For in every unit of the government, in the Army, in the Navy, in the Air Force, the specially trained units for the inner cities. In the police department, specially trained units for the inner cities. Special types of weapons. And a vehicle which you might call a tank, built especially for inner city activity. As a race as a whole constantly of just that one activity. Is the race as a whole aware of the fact that with the spreading of the civil rights movement, all America got excited over or with fears that the blacks would really be making some progress? And different population groups, different minority groups, other than those of the African race, became greatly disturbed because they thought that the blacks would be getting privileges and opportunities which they themselves might not achieve. Or in other words, that the blacks might possibly get ahead of them. And at that time, all these movements started. And you don't have to be a historian to notice that although we had a woman's equal rights movement, and who was against equal rights? No one. But the great surge of the white middle class women for jobs got underway. And only the leading black women of America, I heard them on 3 panels, were wise enough to see through the whole thing when asked, why aren't you actively engaged in the equal rights movement? Don't you? They say, oh yes, we believe in equal rights, but this thing means more than that. These women who are leaving their clubs and so forth, these well-to-do women, what they're doing, they're excited over seeing a number of black faces on TV and or in stores as salesmen and that sort of thing. And what they are doing, they are simply, this is a movement to block the advance of our men. So we know that whatever achievement the women's equal rights movement may make, the black women of America will be relatively in the same position relative to them. And if we let them block our men from advances, then the whole race will be blocked. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Note that it's our women who saw through this, not our men. Not our men. They saw the trick. They're as much for equal rights as anyone, but they saw that this is an economic drive to block or to check the advance of black men. And believe me, they are doing it. They are doing it on a nationwide scale, believe me. They are replacing black men everywhere. But they are simply joining their white brothers and their white fathers and uncles and sweethearts and so forth, and then they're more comfortable. So they're forming all the duties. And blacks are gradually disappearing. Now, that's just one instance, but this is the significance. This is the significance of it. As more and more white women, and notice in all of these movements, I don't care whether you're talking about your beloved third world people from South America, Mexico, and Vietnam, or whether you're talking about the white women. If you listen to the discussions that I've been referring to over the TV, if you listen to the panel discussion, you see, we listen too much, I fear, to the wrong channel. It's all right, yeah, I like to hear the jazz and the boogie-woogie and the hustle and the bumps and all that at time, but not forever and everlastingly. So to the exclusion of those discussions that are going on, this is sign the destiny of my race, and they are going on, and they're discussing it in the open. In the open. And you'll find out that they are using the very terms that we thought they were going to advance us, terms such as civil rights, affirmative action. They've grabbed the ball, and they're turning all this against us. Reverse discrimination, they scream. When there isn't reverse discrimination, but it's a part of the law. And we are not in a position to protect ourselves. Why? Because we're not organized to protect ourselves nationally at the rate. The other war group, Karen War, I mentioned the Klan and the Ku Klux Klan and the Hitler's American Nazi Party and the John Birch Society and the White Citizen Council and so forth, primarily because we don't really apprehend the real danger in the nature of these societies. They are presented in the media. There's not very many. Not very many. Just a bunch of extremists. Even when the man in the media himself is a Klansman or a Nazi who was saying this, they are, in order to get you to feel, as we generally do, not too much threatened. But let me tell you, my friend, the people who march with the sheets and so forth, this is just a fraction of the Klan, just to mention one organization, just to mention one. Because what I say about the Klan is true of all the rest of it. The real power of the Klan, the real power of the Ku Klux Klan, and its real danger to us is their membership, their silent, unpublished membership. Members who wouldn't be seen in a Klan meeting, ever. Because they're judges, they're sheriffs, they're police officers, they are members of the legislature, they are in the highest position, they are members of the Klan and these other racist organizations. And that's where the power is. That's where the power is. We see what looks like a relative few. And you say, oh, just a few cooks. Who's worried about them? But they have power. And the power is that secret list of members. Of course, all of them are secret as a rule, for the most part. But the vast number, and this has always been the case, always been the case. They rarely reveal the real power. And it goes all the way up to the highest echelons of government in these organizations, designed primarily to crush, to check, to destroy the black race in America. We have no means to protecting ourselves against such like organization, and there's any number of these. But what about the danger within? And here's where the jump on Chancellor Whilliams and say, now, if you just stay on Whitey, now, don't bother us. Don't bother us. A professor at Temple University, he's very much disturbed. And, I'm the one, you know, the Black Academy gave the Book of the Year award to the destruction of black civilization some years ago. He was on the board. He said, I think I'll vote against that award, although it's going to pass, but I think I'll vote against it because so you give us to hell. We washing our dirty linen in the public. This shouldn't be done. Say, just keep the fire on the whites. Say, don't be revealing. Now the idea among us, so deceptive, there's so many of us, is that the white people don't know about what's going on in the black world when they are really the origin and the promoters of the whole thing. I don't care what it is. They know more about it than we seem to really know or to acknowledge. So we aren't hiding anything from the whites, you know. Let me mention a few things that hurts me to even to discuss. just like in writing history. If you have sworn on the altar of God that your sole purpose is the search for truth, and that once you can determine what the truth is, you're going to declare it, no matter how much it hurts or who it hurts. If it hurts your own race, if it hurts your own religious affiliation, no matter if it hurts your best friend, declare that truth if you're going to be a true historian. Don't dress up. Don't say, well, no, I won't put that in. No, I'll leave that out. Oh, you can do it and it won't be missed. Hardly. Just leave it out, and it's been left out. A whole lot of the things been left out. It's not even discussed. Some things that we should have the race up in arms all over the country, even when it's publicized by members of our group, not even condemned. Let's take a few by the organization which, even as a boy, I joined. Even as a boy, I joined. Even as a boy, I sold the leading magazine then published for the race in America, The Crisis, edited by W.B. Du Bois. I was the agent and joined the NAACP. And I thought the NAACP was, for what it, because of its cases before the courts and that sort of thing, as I grew on up through the years, was our real. I could sleep in peace, at ease, because we had an organization that was for us. And but it was only partly true. I found out, to my shock, to my sorrow. And it's becoming more and more evident. First of all, as many of the young members of the NAACP began to revolt because of the dominant white leadership, but that wasn't disturbing me so much. It was the white leadership was always there. It was there when I was a boy. The board was predominantly white, and they had the strategy of always employing as the executive director, the man who was going to contact the public, a person who would be somewhat militant. He could go, because that was necessary in order to hold the black population. You had to have someone who seemed to be, at the time, giving white a hell. Right, he knew just how far to go. It's part of the strategy. Still part of the strategy. You don't, because they control the power structure. Now, what have they been doing in recent years? The first thing is that they are campaigning now to destroy all predominantly black institutions. In other words, when I first saw this, I said, oh no, now this is a misprint or something. This couldn't be. No members of this could be that crazy. No matter how pro-white they might be, no matter how near-white they might be, they would not come before the nation and say to the whole race, we want to discontinue all predominantly black institutions. All must be integrated into white institutions, no matter what kind, as a part of their integration drive. But was there an overall national rebellion on the part of the black? Well, we didn't have any means by which to give the full feeling, expression of what the race in America actually feels about fundamental things which affects their very lives. We don't even see this. We talk about genocide. We don't even see this heritage to pass on to your children. They are saying to you in a word, no, we're going to push you more directly. You're already under the white man's control. We're going to push you more directly, beginning in the primary school and right on. So you'd be more directly under the educational system that's got us messed up as we are today. We're going to make it more complete. Now, if there was any misunderstanding about this, transmission made it, I'm talking about enemies within the race. Transmission, able spokesman, nationally known as such, one of the cornerstones. When they had their Washington Convention, National Convention in Washington 2 years ago, he went on nationwide public broadcast. And when asked about what is the real purpose of integration, because I already told you when I issued the destruction of black civilization what the real purpose was. The real purpose is amalgamation. And we try to get it mixed up with segregation, try to get mixed up with the right to go to any school you want to. It had nothing to do with these things. That is an integration mission. Integration would force the pace, the speed in all these areas in order to promote the process of amalgamation and to put it in the language of one of the NAACP's ablest spokesmen to the whole nation and therefore to the world, said he. And that's the real purpose of integration. So the real purpose of integration is quite clear. Not just segregation. The real purpose of integration is to realize the American dream of the melting pot. In the process of which we will, in the course of time, about 50 years and certainly not more than 100, all be of one color. And here was his crowning remark. Keep in mind now, Mitchell isn't black, so he's as dark as I am, he's a brown-skinned man. He isn't satisfied with that, because he said this. He said, so that 50 years from now, and certainly not more than 100, you will not be able to see in this land a face on TV as dark as mine. Now, I thought, when a statement like that is made to the nation, that's why I say the black while the black was asleep, I thought there would be hell breaking loose. I thought protests would pour in on the NAACP and letters be written to the editor and on these talking programs with which I haven't heard a single mumble in it. Here's talking about genocide. If this isn't genocide, what is? He's talking about the abolition of the race through a gradual merger till we get lighter and lighter, and whiter and whiter, until you can't. Well, what kind of world will that be if you could spread it over the world? See, this is in defiance of the laws of nature itself. These are some of the enemies within. Now, my friends, keep in mind, the reason I bring it up, because it's part of the thing which we've got to recognize as a people before we understand some of the things which hold us back. Because what I'm talking about now, I'm actually talking about how the white world and the third world sees the black world. You see this? As a young Indian leader, thought, when he's discussing the problem of the Indians in their fight for civil rights, and when the host of the program asked him, well, why don't the Indians join forces with the blacks in that civil rights movement? He said, oh, no. He says, we're not fighting for the same goal. See, the blacks, he said, they're fighting to be with the whites. We are fighting to be away from them. The blacks are fighting to merge their identity in the white race. We are fighting to keep our identity. For we insist, said this young Indian leader, and we shall fight to be recognized as equals among men, as Indians. And we are not going to abolish our race to accommodate the egotism and the superiority complex of white. We'll hold our Indianhood. The world doesn't see us like that. They see us as struggling. First, not feeling that we are really capable of working out our own destiny. So we're afraid to turn the white man's hand loose even momentarily. Long enough to just meet and decide, as indeed we will have to decide if we survive as a race, alone, through study and exchange of views, how best to work out our own salvation. First, for the protection and the defense of the race in a hostile world, and then to advance the race on all fronts. Can we do it? Only one way can be done, and that would be a movement to unify the race. But this is the great task that is before us. This is the great task that is before us. And it's one, because of its magnitude, we somehow hesitate to attack. But it's one which we will have to attack, this matter of having self-confidence. How do we get like this? Well, Mother Moses really told us. I want to emphasize what she told us, though, because we're not supposed to feel badly about it, because what happened to us happens to any people brought under the domination of another people. But what became tragic in our case was just one little difference that made our acculturation into American society quite different from the cultivation of all the other racial and ethnic groups in this land. And this I want you to think carefully about, because this is the main millstone around our necks. I discovered it by some providential favor in a vague way when I was in the 5th grade. Studying our 5th grade geography, the chapter dealing with the 5 races of men, in which the authors had put, in the case of the 4, the finest specimen that the artist's mind could conceive to present an example of the Caucasian race, the brown race, the Malay, not cream, we had the brown. And we saw an early rebellion in me. And I began to question the kind of education that I was receiving. Aside from incidents of that kind, there were other things which made a lasting impression. One was the discovery at an early age that I was neither a Negro nor a nigger. Did I get this from our educated and enlightened people? Did I get this? We are the middle class, upper class, that too, no matter how small the place is, you're going to have some upper class blacks. That's one of the jobs the whites done for us. Spread us up by making us think If you had a little income, a little more education than someone else, they put you up above them, and so you cut you off from the great masses of people. That prohibits unity also. That prohibits unity also. So there, we couldn't get any information there. But happily, there were old slaves, or ex-slaves, still alive. My grandfather and grandmother were ex-slaves. And they knew that we were Africans. And one pointed out, say, you see this church over there on Amelia Street called the AME? I said, well, what? Yes, we all know about the AME. She, what does the AME mean? Well, I didn't know what the AME meant. Everybody just said AME, I just thought that was the whole thing. I wasn't being instructed by educators now, I'm instructed by illiterate ex-slaves, who many times have so much more wisdom and understanding than the so-called educated that you wouldn't believe. He said, well, some of us at a very early period knew that we were Africans. And this is a group of people. This church was founded by a group of our people who knew that they were Africans and were tired of being dominated by white bishops and white superintendents and so forth in the ME, Methodist Episcopal Church. So they withdrew from the white-controlled, white-dominated ME church and formed their own African Methodist Episcopal Church. They knew that they were African. And my friend, from 10 years old, the man who now stands before you was an African. That's important because it's behind all that I've done, the sense that I was more African than I was in America. Still am. That's very, very important. I think then the point that must be stressed is that in coming through this process of education with nothing to offset it, cut off from our homeland. When we first came, we were called Africans, But it dawned upon the whites that now this won't do because this sounds like somebody. And they realize it. They realize it. If the slaves came up with the consciousness that they were Africans, they had to come up with the consciousness that there was somebody, that there was a homeland behind them or something. So they obliterated that so completely that even when I was in college, if you call anybody an African, you get a fight. Culturally, let me emphasize that, to be an American, it was necessary for you to be culturally, and that is mentally, white. That is the process of becoming an American. Specifically, it meant then that you adopted the white man's religion, his politics, his economic ideas, his value system, his whole way of life, you adopted. Now it happened that American culture was Anglo-Saxon, which means that it was German in origin. Anti-African and anti-black from times immemorial. Please get this if you don't get a single other thing I say, because it's probably one of the most important things. The American culture was Anglo-Saxon culture, to which it was easy for the Greeks, Poles, and others to become adopted to absorb, because it did not destroy their links with their Poland, their links with Greece, their links with Ireland, their links with whatever country they came from. They had always sing with pride about their fatherland, the land of their forefathers and their foremothers. And they never forgot it, no matter have they ever seen it. They didn't have to see it. They didn't have to go back. They didn't have to attend to go back. All they had to know that they were an Irish, a Pole, and that there was an Ireland and a Poland, and they could be more proudly American. Because what they were in their country, when they could point to men and women in their own bloodline, how they made contributions to civilization, going back into ages. When this was their charter for equality and liberty, not anything written in the American document. This was their charter, and they could be proud Americans without forfeiting one iota of their manhood and womanhood, but not so with the blacks. Because we didn't have any link with Africa. What we heard about Africa, that we came from a land of savages and cannibals, barbarians and what have you, and that we should pray every day and every night on our knees, thanking God that by His grace we were saved by the white man and brought under Christian civilization. And we have been doing just that. Doing just that. Because we didn't have this heritage. See, when you're talking about the study of history, you're not talking about just studying history to know. No, it goes deeper than that. You're talking about finding your bloodline, finding whether or not you have the same claims to civilization and civilized life and absolute equality that had not to be given to you as an act of grace by the white or anybody else. That's what you're doing when you're tracing the roots in the past. The most unfortunate thing in the story of the great work by Haley was that although he traced his heritage to a land, a country, which was right in the realm, that means the region, where one of the greatest African educational system had been developed, where one of the greatest universities in the Middle Ages existed, where some of the famous colleges existed within walking distance from Kuzi Kendra's home. Walking distance. He tells you about his walk to Mars, the Empire of Mars. But he didn't go into that. He's wise, I suppose, because probably if he was going into that, we wouldn't have had room. Probably. He had to know it. With all the research he did, he had to know it. He had to know it. But he left out with the most significant thing. Most significant thing. In talking about the culture. So we didn't know anything. We didn't know anything about it in the background. So what does this mean, my friends? What it meant and what it now means is that because becoming American, we of necessity became black Anglo-Saxons, black Caucasians, mentally, culturally. That's what it is. That's what happened to us. In other words, I'm telling you, to study the history of the race, you have to study more than history. You have to go into the allied fields also to see what happened to us, especially when we acted different from anybody else. Oh yes, you have to spend years in studying other fields, not just plain history. You want to know what history means. Why do we act as we do? Why do you hear that we hate ourselves? We confess it, and why does the world say the blacks hate themselves? Why? Well, they hate themselves because they're looking to, although you Physically, your brown eyes may be brown, but you're looking at through eyes of blue. That's why you hate yourself. Invisible blue eyes, of course you hate yourself. Why are we the only ethnic or nationality group in the nation that murder our own people wholesale? Keep it in mind, for it's the same point, it's because we hate ourselves. And you hear one fellow over 10 cents a quarter grab a gag or knife and nigger, I'll kill you. It's not an African talking. It's a black Anglo-Saxon. And what he sees is not a member of his own race. He sees a picture of something that he's not. I think about this, my friend, because when you think about it, don't be ashamed. Say, this is what happened to us as a result of slavery. This is what happened to us. Now, it's time for us to slowly begin the second emancipation. That's what I mean. When I dedicated the second edition of the instructions to the youth of America, I did it because they had, in the 1960s, actually started what looked like was going to be the second emancipation, which is the liberation of our mind, the very thing I'm talking about now. For one thing, if you don't remember anything else in the destruction of black civilization, on the point that I'm now discussing, when I said that the white man's greatest victory over the black, the white man's greatest victory over us, was not the conquest of our country and its land, as awful and devastating as that was. His greatest conquest was not the conquest and enslavement of our body, as damnable as that was. But his lasting and most permanent conquest was the conquest of our mind. That is what we're suffering from. That's why we can't have a national organization of a strength to protect the race and to promote its interests. That's why. That's why we're fragmented. That's why every leader wants to be a king and instead of being a servant of the people. That's why they're more glory-seeking than they are serving the people. Because they don't have this basic love, which they must have. The number one qualification of every leader is you must love the people with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Love them, and hoping that God is giving you enough intelligence and strength to help reason with them the best way to go. Not as a dictator. Not that this is the way that you must go because I said it, but brothers and sisters, let's counsel together. And let's see. This is the true leaders who come because we are brothers and sisters. We're all detailed good because, my friend, when I finish the history of the race, instead of doing what the historian is supposed to do, the academic historian, with all your data and stuff, you close the book there. So now I've completed the history. When I completed the historical record, the fire was still burning. That fire was burning in my soul with a fire saying, now, you've traced the history of your people going back to the Stone Age. You're saying that they and no other race gave birth to civilization, the arts and the science. You've seen all that. You reviewed the period when they were the first among the leaders of the world. You looked at the period when Europe and its scholars, even what the white world called the father of history, came to Africa to study. You've seen then that your people not only began civilization, but for thousands of years were on this frontier. You've seen all that. And just reporting it would make many hearts glad. But you also have seen what they did to go down and down and down and down until the day in our own time, and for the past centuries, they have been at the bottom to the spies among mankind. Now, what you have discovered in this survey over thousands of years, how this happened. You've seen why the blacks went down. So don't stop yet. Don't close the book. In the light of all this research over so many years now, deal with the question, where do we go from here? What is the road back to greatness? If the race wishes to go, it's your responsibility, since you spent the best years of your life on this, the best years of your life, some charge that the reason for my blindness, or near blindness, I'm not absolutely blind, but I'm near blind, is due to this excessive study, but I'm not putting it to that. The point was, the challenge to me was, since you spent the best years of your life in all of this, it's your obligation now to indicate from the same data, not from any armchair thinking, not from just saying what you think it should be, no, but from your own record. What is the route to salvation? We won't stop now. Right. Right to view from the breeze. Right, what the race should be doing, how they should be doing. And this is going to be their hardest task because they've been so fragmented till this unity has become a way of life with them. Or you can get large groups to follow a leader. You won't have any trouble with that. Any one of you right now can put on a purple and red robe and some kind of shiny cap or something and walk out here now. And you get a big following. Might not work. Or you say, well, now I've been in contact with the Eternal, and I got a message for you, and follow me. And you'll get thousands of people to follow you. Because you're following, but you won't see any need of uniting with anybody else. And that's been our history. So what I set forth in part 2, the view from the bridge, organizing a race for action. And I'm going in great detail. Great detail. But the most important thing I think I've said in this section was that this is a plan which, when we get ready, and we must if we are to survive, some such plan as this you must consider. But this is not the plan. If any among the race, in this country or anywhere else, can develop a better plan, for God's sake bring it forward. Just for God's sake bring it forward. Nor should be when they present something to a people, you say, now this is it, you accept this, and oh no, that is it. For your consideration, with the hope that in taking an analysis, there will be ideas for improvement. There will be ways to modify or to make it even better. But you've got to have a plan to begin with. You've got to have a skeleton. You've got to have something to work with. And you've got to have a vision. We are a quick up and quick down people. You can't do it right away. Get things started. You can't get quick results. You're ready to let it go. You don't have the patience. But what I'm talking about would require the same kind of patience in building, as I've also mentioned in my book, that our forefathers had when they built the pyramid. They built it for eternity. They knew the men went to begin to lay the foundation, and even the second and the second. Each one of those generations knew that it wouldn't be completed in their lifetime, but they were happy because they were building something that would stand the test of time, with the inspiration of common descendants of their own race. And it would so stand even when the other world came in and took it over and claimed it as their creation and theirs. The black world is learning once again that we built the pyramid. Learning once again that we started the whole dynastic system, learning once again, and that it took years and years and years. But to build with such a foundation, and this requires study, and this perhaps is one of the reasons why, although this has been presented now about 6 years ago, I can understand why many leaders look at it and say, well, no, this is not for me. It requires a different approach. It requires an entirely new approach. I talk about such things, for example, is training to manage the affairs and to administer the affairs of the people efficiently and well. I talk about things of that kind. I talk about a new sense of financial responsibility that would be maintained in handling the people's money, something we were reckless with. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I've been in too many organizations and organizations of various kinds, orders. I used to belong to almost everything until I was thoroughly disgusted. A few people in the leadership role and how they were gouging millions of innocent, hopeful, trusting people. But you have something to build upon because we haven't given up faith. We have faith even in these culture that aims at organizing the race in every state. Just talking about America right now. In every state, in every county, in every city, in every town where 100 blacks may be found. That would be the objective. Organized. A relentless campaign, setting goals for over a period of years. A campaign for what? To rejoin the race. That would be the drive. To rejoin the race. We are alienated from it. What are you doing with so many young people in the field? What are you doing calling students, telling them during the summer that you need tens of thousands of them to go into the field in the membership campaign that's going to be relentless from year to year? What are you doing? We are enlisting members to rejoin the race. But we have a program, we worked out a program for it. A program, number one, to protect the race on all fronts. To wield national and international power, for then and then only can we speak from a position of strength that will command respect for the whole world, governments and everything else, because you're organized. Second, with a program that will provide a program of production, number one, where we will sit down and examine ourselves from head to foot and ask the question, what do I have on that is manufactured by our race? We're spending billions of dollars a year. Can't we produce some of the necessities of life? Now, mind you, once we decide, for example, that we will sit down and examine ourselves from head to foot and ask the question, what do I have on that is manufactured by our race? We're spending billions of dollars a year. Can't we produce some of the necessities of life? Now, mind you, once we decide, for example, that we are going to produce, or let us say, a fine line of shoes for the nation. A line of shoes of a quality unsurpassable by any other shoe. This would be the objective, but everything we do, you see. Hence I stress this training in advance, time for training in the various fields. A shoe, men, women, and children, of the best style, of the best quality. Not only when we get into that kind of production would we be providing a service to our own race and an income that provides thousands of jobs. But once you begin to talk about and deal with standards of quality, you'll be dealing with the world. White, yellow, brown, you name it, will seek us. It will be at that point when we begin to be producing something on a large scale of a very high quality, not as black capitalism or anything else, but as a group enterprise, where each group in each town will be cooperatively trained. 78 hadn't yet passed, and we've already spent, that is the black Americans have already spent $80 billion. And we haven't been able to siphon off just one of those 80 billion for the benefit of our own race and for the development of our own race. And I'm saying that we'll set goals for what one of the goals would be to determine what period of time would it take us to employ to create 1 million jobs for black, created by black. 1 million jobs. How long will it take us? But we have an objective to work for. Well, I'm not talking about some little something. I'm talking about a race that's on its way back. On the route that's going to put you back. And once we start to assuming a larger share of responsibility and change the viewpoint of the world, that we are just a race of job holders and not job creators on any matter. We can provide more jobs. We can do more than we are doing. We can provide more jobs ourselves and let the world know it. We can set up a system of education for our people so that every week we too, like the Jews, like the Catholics, and now like the Spanish-speaking groups, we too can be on the air nationwide at least twice a week. In an attempt to enter, first making a frontal attack on mass ignorance and getting to the homes of black Americans with messages of hope and reports on what we are doing, but at the same time carrying on an educational program. No reason for our dying first, as we are. No reason why the whites should live 8 to 10 years longer than we. We should go into that. We should know the reason why. No reason why we should lead in all the major diseases. No reason, but we haven't got a spokesman. And that spokesman's got to be the race. It's the route to which we committed to pass. For the rest, sometimes sit down and read carefully and prayerfully The Destruction of Black Civilization, Part 2. And note that I've said, one person can start. Oh, guess what? Note that I've also said why now, at this point, that I'm not, and there are others in my position, not now assuming the leadership role in this. This, the younger generation and others must take up the challenge or lead it. They must take up the challenge, carry on, and I believe they will. I have every reason to believe they will. And I do not live on an idle hope. I want to say finally to Mother Moore that while you were talking about your age and feeling so young and frisky and think that everybody else is junior, I want to say that and one reason I said after clapping so hard, it occurred to me when you said about the string of degrees thing, it occurred to me, I said, well, yeah, why shouldn't I clap? She's boasting about her age. Little does she know that within less than 2 months, I myself will be 80. And my friends talking about being blessed, I have been doubly blessed, for except with the failure of the eyes, I would take a poll and bet that I feel better than 3/4 of now. Take care of my health. I feel fine and doing well. My last word then, and this is my last word, I've indicated a number of times the last word, and I kept on talking. My last word then is to persevere, not to despair, although we seem to be more fragmented than ever. I feel, and I know, from the letters I get, and the telephone calls I get from 4 different parts, and not only the United States, but sometimes from overseas, that there is a grim resolve in many, and actually last Sunday at prison, where I appeared, where the prisoners had given, for every year, they have what they call the Chancellor Whilliams Award to give to an outstanding member of the race who has made a contribution. But one of the things they said is what I frequently hear. You will not be let down. We have studied you. We believe that you indicated the way for us out, and we will not fail. We will not fail you. And I get this from so many places. Until when once in a while I get another call from someone who is despairing, say, aren't you disheartened? Look at us, we're going in every direction. We're joining all kind of poorhouse organizations and whatnot. Do you know about this? Let me tell you about this. I said, no, I know about them. I get lessons about the poor organizations. That they don't seem to be headed towards unity. They seem to be headed up on something else. Aren't you discouraged? No, I'm not discouraged. No, I'm not discouraged. And I think, and when I sing at all about we shall overcome, it's not in the vein of the civil rights. I think it's going to be something that we will start. Perhaps it'll be underway before I pass from the scene. It may be underway before I pass from the scene. But whoever starts must remember that they're starting something that must be started slowly and with firm foundation. And as you build, the eyes of an all-seeing God will overlook you, and we will not be defeated by the things which happen even against us by others or within our race. We will not be defeated. We will not be abolished. We will not be destroyed by the analysts of population who grimly predict that we would probably be the first casualties in any overcrowding of the world. The survival of the fittest would come to the fore. Don't be discouraged about any of these things. But try to remember that we should have the same resolution that our forefathers, foremothers had as their voices rang over the forest and over the fields and over the hills and across the streams and rivers of Africa. As they sang, we are children of the sun, and we'll overcome each test. For we are the first upon the earth, and we'll be the last.